This is where about half of you watching are like, oh my god, are you really putting this fucking intro in the thing again? We're tired of the screaming, the song's overdone. Dude, you almost bombed on depth, your squat was horrendous this meet, dog shit day. And there's a little glitchy action. Alright, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Sean Noriega at NORi Powerlifting, and we are back at it with another voiceover training video. You guys gave me a ton of positive feedback on the last one, and I'm going to keep giving you guys what you want. So, today, primary topic, how Steve and I are going to fix my squat and get back that late 2018, early 2019 mojo when I was squatting fucking houses. Alright, first thing you guys are going to notice here, my grip is a little bit different than what you guys have seen as of late, especially when I was going into my meet prep. I think both how I was holding the bar as well as where I was placing it was contributing in a very major way to the posterior rib pain that I was dealing with. So, we're going back to a much more straight wrist grip, although it still is a little bit bent, and squeezing the bar a little harder, holding it in a true low bar position rather than being passive with the grip and letting it just kind of hang lower. Another thing you guys are going to notice here real quick, if you caught a glimpse of the feet, is that I am wearing heels again. Now, I've had a ton of people ask me, Sean, are you going to stick to heels? Are you going to go back to flats? Like, what's the deal? You're always switching it up. Well, we are trying to mimic everything that I used to do really well when my squat was technically and strength-wise the best it had been to date. So, one of the factors that contributed to that beautiful technique I had back in the day, if you guys remember, was heels. So heels are here to stay, and I'm not getting rid of them. So, one of the things that Steve actually noticed with regards to my bar placement is that when I would grip the bar, my right arm and right hand specifically would be a lot more lax holding the bar. And I think that's just an issue of asymmetrical shoulder external rotation. Like, I just had way more freedom on the left side than the right. So in order to get the bar in the same spot, I would have to bend the right wrist back more and hold it with more of like a false grip just to be able to get the same positioning. But that was contributing to an off-center placement on my back. And, you know, I talk about some PRI stuff from time to time, some restorative stuff, but oftentimes the simplest answer is the best one. And what Steve recommended, which I think has been working wonders, is just having somebody line me up on the bar. And that's what you guys just saw right there with my good buddy Tom. His Instagram is R1Rogue or R1Og. I can't remember which one it is, but he is a deadlift monster. He's pulled like 750 pounds before or something like that. Crazy dude. All right, moving on to the top set, which, granted, this isn't much for me, but given how shitty squats were during the week, this was a huge step up in terms of feeling comfortable under the bar and moving well. This is the top set of pause squats, a triple at RP6 with 485 pounds. And one of the things that Steve mentioned to fix and play around with after we had numerous discussions was my pelvic positioning. And what I mean by that is not while I'm squatting, but just when I'm setting up and bracing. I think that for a while now, I've been trying to overcorrect and get my pelvis tucked underneath me more in order to, you know, establish proper orientation, whatever the fuck that means. But the problem is, I don't really have great hip extension at the top, and I really sit back and hinge into my squat. So why would I want my pelvis underneath me if I'm going to end up hinging? I'm going to actively undo all of that, as you guys probably saw and will notice with this double that I take after that triple, is that since I sit back, it just makes sense to just be more relaxed from the bottom half. Really focus on the rib cage, obliques, abs, get all that in control, but just let the pelvis hang neutral. You're not going to be in extension if you're not trying to arch your back unless you have an anterior orientation, which I do not. But this felt, long story short, way, way, way better than what I was doing prior. And that double was okay, not the greatest thing in the world, but after the double, we drop on down. I can't remember. I think it was sets of 4. Yeah, so back down set of 4 at 197.5 kilos pause. And the reason that Steve and I are doing pause squats, and we'll talk more in detail when he comes on the channel because he did agree to do that, was the reason we're doing pause squats instead of tempos is that it's a good form of load management and will help me get back my technique better by having to control and decelerate as I'm coming down in the squat. I think the tempos were really, really valuable for a long period of time. However, the transition back to competition tempo was very difficult and felt very awkward. And I don't think that my body was equipped to handle it, both from a mechanical standpoint and a loading standpoint. And could be also another reason why I ended up getting injured. Who knows? But pause squats feel great. That's the end of that. So we finished up squats. This first week, like I mentioned in the first video, is super low volume, getting back into it. We move on here to deadlifts, which obviously got to start warming up at a red. And one of the things that I've been doing with my warm-ups for a while now is just pausing every warm-up and trying to be really gradual in loading the tension into the ground and just trying to ramp the tension, really apply it more slowly instead of yanking. Because I've always had this bad habit of yanking on the bar whenever pause deadlifts are taken out of my program. And even though pause deadlifts are in my program right now, during periods of time, especially transitioning into a competition prep where pause deadlift singles become comp deadlift singles, the transition very quickly leads to some sort of regression in technique. But when I keep the pause warm-ups around, things go okay. And that's what I did for my last meet. Up until my last warm-up, I was pausing the singles, and it worked beautifully. So things are going well on deadlift. All right, everybody, say hi to Lucas. This is my buddy here. We actually only met very recently through somebody I also only met very recently. But Lucas here filmed our... Do I need to zoom out, Lucas? What? Do I need to zoom out? I feel like I'm too close on my face right now. You're good. All right, we're good. So Lucas filmed the video I did with Pat Davidson that you guys saw a couple weeks ago, and he's here today to take some pictures of the new apparel. So he's gonna be here again tomorrow, which you guys will see when there are more people here wearing the gear. But like you guys know, 10:31, the drop is happening, and I could not be more excited. And thank you, dude. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the pictures. So we're gonna get back to pulling now, but my mood is instantly improved over what I thought it was going to be, because squats after Steve's fixes feel immaculate. Let's keep moving. Moving on in the warm-up, I did not film 3 reds, but you guys didn't really need to see that. This is just filler for me to talk to you guys. So 4 reds, felt okay. Granted, like I said, I'm getting back into things, haven't really been pulling. This is, I think, the 4th or 5th time pulling in over a month. It felt okay. I'm sure it looks okay to many of you, but my deadlift feels really light and moves really explosively in some of these lighter weights. So it might be a little bit deceiving because it didn't feel that great. What we had here, which you guys just saw, was 247.5 kilos. We were doing cluster singles, resting about a minute between each single. Obviously, the percentage here is not super high. And then we're going to move on to some back off work. But Steve prescribed these just to keep hook grip in the program, because as you guys know, I pretty much strap up for everything that isn't a single. But we want to keep some hook grip skill retention there, because it does go a little bit when I don't do it for a while. So this was the second single. We had one more, and then we moved on to pause back downs. Honestly, technically, I'm very, very happy with these. They obviously move fast just because they're light, but they did feel a little heavy breaking the floor, which is usually my biggest issue on deadlift, just breaking the floor, feeling pretty horrendous. Even though I usually can break the floor with good speed, the breakdown is happening at the ground, and that's what's going to lead to, you know, sticking points or loss of velocity up the chain that would lead to a miss. But usually when I go back to high rep deadlifts, which is in my program with Steve, it usually takes 2 to 3 weeks, and then I start really picking it up again strength wise. So high rep deadlifts, we got a pause set of 8 here with 225 kilos, which the prescription was, I think, an RPE 5 for the day, which is obviously pretty light, and there's, you know, a little bit of a margin for error in terms of like what's a 4, what's a 5. Like, it's kind of hard to figure out what weight fits into that category. So sometimes having a percentage guide to help is really valuable, but in my case, I just kind of know from just so many repeated bouts of you know, working in these rep ranges and associating RPE with them, I know that this is probably a good starting place, and as the weeks pick up, I'll probably be able to exceed my cluster singles that I have prior to the pause sets without really any issue. With regards to technique on this set, I'm happy with it. I think that one of the things that is going to get better over time is just how much I open up my hips. Granted, I'm not actively trying to externally rotate as hard as I can, but I think that when my tissue and the movement pattern just gets re-solidified, I end up opening more involuntarily. So on to bench. Not really that exciting this day, unfortunately, although tomorrow is fantastic. But today's bench day, it's a Friday, it is like my primer day, and that's what I treat it like for my Saturday session. It's a similar deal with Monday, although Monday is also accompanied by Larson presses, as you guys saw in the last video. But this day is meant to be taken very conservatively. I had a top set at RP 6, I believe, and then percentage backdowns. And like I mentioned, with my bench press, I have developed a very predictable schedule where now I know that, okay, Tuesday is the really, really strong tempo day, and Saturday is the really, really strong competition day. And for my purposes, I would much rather have like a really, really strong, reliable pattern set than just hitting some crazy number in the middle of the week that I can't replicate on the weekend. Because peaking a bench press when you bench 5 or 6 days a week is very difficult to do. Extremely, extremely difficult to do. You can't just like taper before the meet, just do less volume or rest and expect the strength to be there. It's much more valuable to make your schedule set up so that you are strong the day of the week you compete. Just limits any sort of surprises. So as you guys can see by that set, I mean, the RP is not really registerable, probably like a 4 when we get to those back downs. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, guys, the primary focus is how we're going to fix this squat. And for those of you watching this, I know that the video didn't do that well, which I'm kind of disappointed about because I thought it was a cool video. My video with Pat Davidson, you guys saw my left leg is super, super weak. I've talked about how I'm really, really missing hip internal rotation on that left side, as well as just dealing with groin pain overall. That's been pretty bad recently, but is getting better. But it was really, really bad last year, kind of resurfaced, whatever. There's a clear weakness unilaterally. And one of the exercises that Steve is giving me right now is Bulgarian split squats. And I've never really been a big fan of Bulgarian split squats in the past, but the way that Steve taught me to do them, or just gave me some insight in terms of performing them properly, I'm really trying to put like 80%, 90% of my weight on that front leg and then just sit straight down. And I think that taking that approach versus like trying to keep my weight centered evenly has contributed in a very major way to making them feel much more comfortable and just making the groove a lot better. And honestly, the next day and even the days following, now that I'm recording this for you guys on a Monday night, even now I'm feeling much better. It was therapeutic in a way. Like my adductor feels better, and not just my adductor feels better, but like I actually feel like I have more hip range of motion and like I can sit into this hip more. One of the quotes, if you watch that video with Pat Davidson, was like, oh, some people say you need to do PRI. It's like, no, maybe you need to work more on the other leg. And honestly, that's what it is. Like I got exposure to a range of motion under load that I usually don't get. And wow, would you look at that? I feel a lot better. So we're going to be working with that. I'm actually really hopeful that these Bulgarians are going to help my adductor a ton and maybe even carry over into my squat. Steve mentioned one of his clients who's a 600 plus pound squatter saw like a 20 to 30 pound jump over the course of time, during which his Bulgarian got a lot better. Granted, it's correlation, but you're working your legs, so it's contributing in some way, and I need all the help I can get right now. So that's the end of that session. Very, very successful day, and even though, squats are not where they were at their best, they're coming back very quickly, which makes me very hopeful to see a nice spurt with regards to my squat in the coming weeks. All right, guys, it is Saturday. Welcome back, even though you guys probably haven't left. Although I know some of you pause the video and wait to watch for later. I understand if you don't want to sit the whole way through. It's whatever. I'll forgive you. I won't hold it against you, I promise. We are here benching one red beautifully. Look at that ROM. Basically, the way that I approach warm-ups on bench press is I'll take a set without wrist wraps, and then I'll take a set with wrist wraps, and I always do them Larson, just to get the pecs warmed up more. Obviously, you can't really warm your pecs up a ton if you're just going through a partial range of motion with a full arch setup. Also, with one red, I can't really get into my full setup anymore anyway, so that's that. Moving on to two reds, usually around 308 is where I can tell if I'm going to have a good day or not. But on this day, I just felt so fresh, so powerful, and my arch just felt so strong. I was like, this is going to be one of the best bench days that I've ever had in my life. And I was certain of that, and that exactly happened. With how frequently I bench and with how objective I've become over the years about bench, not really emotionally attaching myself to numbers at all, I've become much more perceptive to like which days are going to be super strong and which days are just going to be because there's no emotion clouding judgment, making you to, you know, force a number, or on the other side of things, just like getting really down on yourself and letting it affect your mindset or, you know, outlook on the rest of the session. So we have, I think this is Nick giving me a lift off here. No, this is David, actually. David Weeding-Keller was just in the NORi apparel photo shoot, but giving me a good lift off there. That 419 felt immaculate. I was like, oh baby, this is going to be a good day. Instead of jumping to 200, we jumped straight to 210. David's back with another lift off, and his lift off on this one wasn't so great. Kind of clipped the rack. I don't really know what he did there. I didn't ask him for a lift off on the next one because it sucked. But I also kind of dropped it on myself in a weird way. I know you guys really can't see it. It was really subtle, but something felt off. So I was like, I'm not going to go up the full 10. I'll just go up 5, try to be conservative, because as I mentioned, I'm trying to really, really stay conservative and just leave space to have block-to-block progression, and not necessarily crazy intra-block progression. I care much more right now about collecting wins across blocks and seeing consistent growth rather than just trying to make a crazy run at something. So that 215 single, that 474 is so fast. Like, I don't think I've moved 474 like that more than like 2 times, probably in my entire lifting career. So I was really, really happy about that. You'll notice though, I moved to another rack. Xavier, who is the owner of the gym, co-owner of the gym, was warming up for deadlifts wearing one of my shirts for the first apparel drop. And I was like, I want you to deadlift in the shirt on the nice platform. So I'll move over to this shitty bench and I'll get to work over here on my back down, since the back downs aren't anything crazy. That set you guys just saw was pretty negligible on the RPE scale. And then I moved on to my Larsons, which I had sets of 5. These felt really, really good, although I will say it is kind of weird how there are some days where my competition bench feels phenomenal and Larson feels terrible. And there are also days where Larson feels amazing and comp bench feels terrible. Today was one of those days. Like, it was one of my best bench days ever, but Larson's didn't feel that strong. Probably just, you know, different muscles involved, but overall very happy with the day. One of the things now that Steve is programming, as you guys could see, is heavy chin-ups, which I am loving. I've had a very, very positive experience with chin-ups, and they've been super beneficial for my deadlift. Like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just anecdote and it was, you know, during a successful deadlift block. But the times where I've really pushed my chin-up strength, my deadlift has followed with it. So we have triples, heavy triples on chin-ups, which I've never done before. I've always worked in higher rep ranges, followed by back down 7s. So we're working with both here. We're doing some heavy stuff. We're doing some light stuff, or rather hypertrophy rep range stuff. But I think that was a top set of 3 with 66 pounds. And then I think I backed it down to set of 7 with about 17 pounds here. I can't really tell from the kettlebell, but it's pretty embarrassing. You look at that little tiny fucking thing hanging between my legs. Pause. So that was that set, and then that was about all I had. I tried another set with that weight and I couldn't do it, so we dropped down to body weight. I've never been fantastic at chin-ups. I don't really know why. I just remember, like, one of the first times I ever walked into the gym, I couldn't do a single pull-up. Like, it took me so long to get good at pull-ups. At this point, I could probably bang out, like, you know, 15, 16, 17, something like that, but really nothing crazy. But they help. They really, really help. And just back work in general helps. I think that's just, like, you know, general knowledge most people have. This right here, one of my favorite exercises. I love full range of motion cable rows, really just fucking reaching. You guys can see I just reached out of the screen to fucking push Evan out of the way of the camera. I saw him out the corner of my eye, and I was like, oh, you're not walking in front of this again. Damn, I look muscular as fuck here. Oh my goodness, look at my back. My lats aren't that wide, but that mid back, holy shit. But this is where I'm gonna end the video, guys. This has been great talking to you guys and explaining everything with my squat, and I can't wait to talk about it in more detail when Steve comes on. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Remember, there are no bad days, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.